y'all. Kinsey Schofield here with Dr. Tessa Dunlop, and we are going to discuss. Well, Tom Quinn has a new book coming out, and the reason why I wanted to ask you about Wallis Simpson is because this book it quotes courtiers, and according to Quinn.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got something incredibly juicy for you. A heated debate between royal commentator Kinsey Schofield and historian Tessa Dunlop. The topic? Meghan Markle's so-called master plan. Is she cunningly maneuvering her way into power, or is this just another media frenzy? Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest royal drama.
Some of the courtiers, when discussing Meghan Markle, said, "Oh no, we have another Miss Simpson on our hands." And it's not the first time people have compared Meghan and Wallis. My question to you would be, is it low-hanging fruit, divorced American women? Is there really anything to it, Meghan versus Wallis? And is Wallis, do you think that Wallis is remembered accurately? Do we talk about her accurately?
It's really,
It's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a minefield. And I love your expression, low-hanging fruit. The outsider, the foreigner, the divorcee, the woman is always low-hanging fruit, Kinsey. When all those four intersect, my goodness, the fruit is the ripest it's ever been. It's just ready to drop onto the ground, into the mouth of the serpent. So, yeah, sure. I think there's really easy comparisons to make. I am always interested in the way, historically, certainly for Wallis Simpson, she's portrayed as the villain, even as recently as in The Crown, where I felt them as a couple were 100% maligned. They really cranked up the Nazi drive.
Yep.
So the photographs were forefront, alongside Hitler. There we have Edward VIII with his interfering wife. And she was cast in a very unsympathetic, unattractive way. And of course, the reason for that is Peter Morgan, as we're moving forward in the Crown's narrative to the modern day, to depictions of the contemporary and very much living royal family, Morgan wants to withdraw those guns off that particular lawn. And so why not fire them at the dead, maligned Duke and Duchess of Windsor? So again, a case of low-hanging fruit. Do I think she was a Nazi? No, I don't. Do I think she was ambitious? Yes, she was. Do I think that her very relative, rather poor, but within the old school moneyed American world she was born into, her relative poverty?
So, this all started when Kinsey Schofield and Tessa Dunlop sat down to discuss Meghan Markle's latest moves, her rebranding, her new Hollywood connections, and the ongoing tensions with the royal family. Kinsey, as we know, has been vocal about her skepticism toward Meghan's intentions. Tessa, on the other hand,
mattered to her. Yes, it did. Did that mean she was something of a gold and diamond digger? Yes, she was. Does that mean she was a bad person? No, I don't think it does mean that. So if we then flip to Meghan, is she ambitious? Yes, she is. Is she something of a gold digger? Well, we wouldn't term it as that today. She's out there grafting right now as we speak at the Invictus Games, looking absolutely on point in upscaled beige. Incidentally, I do think their immaculate respective fashion vibes have an echo one to the other. I mean, I don't know what you think about Wallis Simpson's style, but I think she was one of the great sartorial icons of the 20th century. But because she's a baddie, we never frame her as that.
Yeah, first of all, her stuff comes up constantly in auction, and I would love to own something of hers because it is always beautiful. It's all, a lot of luxury items. The jewelry is just exquisite. Of course, I'll never be able to even touch that. But she had really good style. And do you think that
You know
was
what her best piece was, Kinsey? Can I tell you the best dress she ever wore? It was a Schiaparelli dress, but on it was for her engagement, and the photographs were taken by Cecil Beaton for Vogue before their highly controversial 1937 wedding, after they'd been evicted from the royal family and he'd renounced the crown. She's wearing this exquisite white dress on which, down the front, beneath her nether regions, pointing upwards, is a Salvador Dali painted lobster. Tell me there isn't a better way of acquiring a voice through clothes and through sartorial messaging than a lobster hovering around your vagina painted by Salvador Dali. It's an in your face, up yours to the royal family on the other side of the channel, who incidentally did not attend their wedding, pointedly were absent, removed her HRH title or never gave it to her, and stole Cecil Beaton as their royal photographer.
Believes that Meghan is simply trying to navigate a difficult situation and that the media's obsession with her every step is unfair. But here's where things got intense. Kinsey accused Meghan of deliberately positioning herself as the next big thing in Hollywood, while Tessa fired back, calling the criticism nothing more than a witch hunt.
Ooh, wow. So I would say yes, but I wondered, did that all come naturally to her, or was it encouraged by Edward because he wanted her to feel like the queen that he wished she had been? Or was that similar to Diana, the way that she was able to express herself since her world had changed so dramatically and she couldn't sit down and have a normal conversation with somebody about the truth of what was going on behind the scenes?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Edward was myopically, slavishly obsessed with her. To be clear, and I think again there's a parallel here between Harry and Edward and Meghan and Wallis. The tendency is certainly in Britain is to feel that in some way Wallis was culpable for Edward's decision to renounce the crown. That's not the case. Wallis said to him, do not abdicate. She left for France to get out of the firing line, and Edward decided he could not possibly reign in Britain without his wife by his side. He did what she told him not to do, and as a result, she ended up with a sort of eunuch. Instead of a king as a lover, a eunuch as a husband. We don't even know if Wallis wanted that. In fact, we do know she didn't want that. She was stuck with it. But we blame Wallis, and I know that I've spoken to 100-plus-year-old women a few years ago who said, oh, she stole our king, etc. She was framed as the baddie in the piece because Edward was charismatic, good-looking, popular, relative to his slightly gawky, awkward brother, George. Now, track forward to Harry, and dare I say William, but let's not get too personal with dear William, who's much improved with stubble. Look at Harry, popular, princely, charismatic. We love our Harry. So it's very, very easy to blame his departure on Meghan, is it not? To frame her as the baddie, as the witch.
But we've all heard and felt like Prince Harry did not like the what he saw for his future. I think he was uninspired, right? Yeah. I do think that it's important that we remember that, because even some of Meghan's biggest critics will admit that Meghan was his ticket out. She wasn't the vehicle, but she was his ticket.
What do you think? Let me know in the comments. One of the biggest points of contention in this debate was Meghan's growing influence in Hollywood. Kinsey pointed out that Meghan and Harry are reportedly working with major Hollywood power players. There's talk of new film deals, branding partnerships, and even political aspirations. Tessa pushed back, saying that Meghan is just doing what any person in her position would do, building a brand.
She was his ticket. Now, the difference between her and Wallis, I think, speaks to the different era that we're in. Yeah, Meghan gets to go down the aisle and nobody even cocks a glance sideways at the fact that she was already divorced. Here was a divorcee marrying, granted not an heir to the throne, but nonetheless a significant son of the future king. Meanwhile, Wallis Simpson, twice divorced with 2 living husbands, as was pointed out by the royal family, found that she was cold-shouldered because social mores were very different back then, and it was deemed utterly 100% incomprehensible and impermissible. So in other words, Meghan got what Wallis couldn't have because times have changed, and also Camilla and Charles were both divorced. The man who walked her down the aisle was divorced. But the other thing that's changed hugely is women's professional role. While Wallis loved Edward as a lover with his massive, great big royal jewels that he dumped on her. And he cut a really good deal for himself, by the way, on departure from Britain, which was left relations very sore between him and his brother. There was plenty cash for Wallis's wardrobe and her costumes and her jewelry. Whereas for Meghan, she's got to work using Harry's titles and the princely status that he's gifted her, but nonetheless she's got to graft to make good or to realize that sort of royal success story. For Wallis, she was gifted it because women didn't work then. There wasn't social media or streaming networks. She wasn't an actress, so she couldn't suddenly become a sort of Hollywood siren. So the options available to Wallis were considerably reduced. But on the other hand, Edward came with far greater wealth.
Yeah. Oh, I want to read this quote to you from Tom Quinn's book. It says, Meghan Markle had a typically American view of the royal family before she joined it. For her, life was all about castles, glittering balls, and limitless wealth and ease. As one royal staff member put it, she expected a billionaire and she got a millionaire. So do you think that
securing financial independence and using her platform for causes she believes in? But let's be real, Meghan isn't just any celebrity. Her ties to the royal family add a whole other layer to this. Is she playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers? According to royal insiders, the royal family is keeping a close eye on Meghan's next steps.
do you think that what we saw well, I was just going to say, do you think what we saw after Meghan and Harry left was them realizing that or Meghan realizing that there was not an endless flow of money, panic, sign on the dotted line? Or was it thought out? I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem.
I don't know if it wasn't that Harry was insufficiently wealthy. I'm sure he was quite wealthy enough. He inherited a large chunk from his late great grandmother
and his mother,
and also from Diana. I think it was the lack of freedom or the shackles attached to the money that grated with Meghan, who was used to having her own voice and her own truth. However annoying we, and yes, I include myself, may sometimes find that truth and voice. Okay, it's really funny because I'm often derided as being, this nightmare, pro-Sussex crazy. And in fact, there's a lot about Meghan that I don't find reprehensible, but I do find a bit excruciating because I'm British and I don't really do that kind of hug me true.
You do with me, but maybe you're just meeting me where I'm at.
Maybe, but that I think it can appear a little bit insincere sometimes as a grinchy Brit, I'm going to say that. And all the kind of really that on point wardrobe stuff, which by the way, Wallis had a more heavily decorated, heavily jeweled style, but nonetheless it was absolutely thought through down to the very last button and bead, as is Meghan's. Now we might find that a bit unedifying. Certainly it's not very British, but it's where Meghan's at. It's her, and I don't feel that she felt able to be her when she wasn't even allowed to wear a free frock or bang on about some cause that she really believed in, unless it was totally devoid of any kind of political angle. So it's that I think it's her own naivety at marrying into the machine and expecting the machine to bend to her, when in fact the machine has never bent, not in 1,000 years, or very reluctantly. But at the same time, that can lead to cynicism, can't it? Because you could say, well, she just married knowing it wasn't going to work. And then, by complaining a lot, dragging her husband famously out of it, Mexit, she was going to have enough steam and notoriety to be able to go forward and develop several platforms, which is precisely what she's done.
Some believe that she's trying to outshine the monarchy altogether, while others say she's simply navigating her own path. Kinsey argued that Meghan's actions are strategic, from her explosive Oprah interview to the way she's been reintroducing herself in the media. She believes Meghan wants to control the narrative and position herself as the ultimate power player in modern royalty.
You talked about the royal family not bending. Here is a testimonial, probably not the right word to use, but here's a description of Meghan from one of the former staff members. It says, One of Meghan's former staff recalled the awkwardness and hilarity of early meetings with the new Duchess at Kensington Palace. It was extraordinary because she was so confident that you could see she wanted to run the meeting rather than learn about the royal family through the meeting. I think this was typical of what happened throughout her time at Kensington Palace and then Windsor. She was a great believer in grabbing the bull by the horns, except the royal family is not really a bull. So did Wallace really take a back seat? When you hear that description, that's not something I can ever imagine Wallace doing. And if she did take a back seat, is it because her heart was not in it?
Well, the interesting thing about Wallace is that she was never in the royal family. It was
Yeah.
very clear that Wallace could not be part of the official package. That woman was excluded. So, in order to marry that woman, they had to decamp to France. She had to shed all ambition to have a royal title, which really chafed for the Duke of Windsor, that his wife was never HRH. That really, really hurt him. And she therefore operated as the Duchess of a husband who'd given up his throne. So she was, in many ways, without an official role. She never had a role. And I think she vicariously felt hurt on her husband's behalf. She thought it was outrageous the way that they excluded him. After the Second World War, he was never given another formal job. He was derided. He was seen as unreliable. Certainly during World War II, he was more than inconvenient and was hugely, at best, politically naive. So that left Wallace really with a non-role. The only thing she could do, really, was wear nice frocks and write, in the end, a very anodyne autobiography, which somebody once referred to as the sort of ideal facelift, something that made her look like a sort of frozen flower. But this was a sort of life, I think it was a sort of like being in purgatory.
Tessa, on the other hand, thinks that Meghan's critics are reading too much into things, and that the monarchy needs to modernize, whether they like it or not. What's your take? Is Meghan Markle a master strategist or just a woman trying to live her life? Let me know in the comments. So, where does Meghan Markle go from here? Kinsey believes that Meghan is setting the stage for something big.
They within their own home, everyone had to use titles, everyone had to be very decorous. All the flummery that Edward had said he hated, he never actually managed to give up outside the royal family. And there again, you have echoes of Harry and Meghan. Because it's ironic, isn't it, that Harry felt trapped inside the royal family, but still they are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And by all accounts, his Montecito mansion has 13 fireplaces. That requires a large staff, incidentally, the maintenance of 13 fireplaces. By the way, why do you need fireplaces in California? I don't know. Can you explain that one?
History shows us that Wallis Simpson never officially became queen, but she exerted a unique kind of power over King Edward VIII, one that reshaped the monarchy forever. Now, we must ask, is Meghan Markle orchestrating a similar power move from behind the scenes? Is she playing a long game, one that doesn't end with just leaving the royal family, but with changing it from the outside?
I have a fake one, but it's just because I like watching Pride and Prejudice and turning mine on and feeling like I'm there with them. So you mentioned Wallace's book. Is it The Heart Has Its Reasons? Is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
So
that is right. Yeah.
Another person, another author, Sally Bedell Smith, said watching Meghan's trailer for With Love, Meghan reminded her of Wallace's The Heart Has Its Reasons. If we were to translate that, do you think that Sally Bedell Smith is saying they're both using these objects, these projects, as a way to try to change the narrative, to try to control the story, to try to control how people or what people think about them? Or am I reading too much into that?
First thing is, they were both designed to make money, because although I said Edward left the royal family and cut himself a good deal, that pair were massive spendthrifts and they never had enough money because as established at the beginning, yes, Wallis Simpson was hugely acquisitive. She liked nice things.
Whether it's launching a new empire, diving into politics, or even positioning herself as the face of modern royalty outside the palace walls, Tessa argues that Meghan simply wants to continue her work without the constant scrutiny. But let's be real, every move she makes is scrutinized, and she knows it. So the big question is, tell me what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives like this. No matter where you stand on this, one thing is for sure. Meghan Markle remains one of the most talked about figures in the world today. Is she a master strategist playing the long game? Or is this all just a media-driven frenzy? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. And before you go, subscribe for more royal news, analysis, and debates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.